Once again, I want to take this opportunity to thank everyone who is on our platform on Kambel Masterclass. My name is Moses Katamani. I am doing the introduction now. I already told you that I have been a trained teacher, being in a teaching profession or educational system for about 24 years now, both in Ghana and Nigeria. I've been a school manager in Nigeria, and by God's grace, I am now doing what we call school management consultancy. And I can also say that through this course already, I have gotten a consultancy service in Ghana, and I want to thank everyone who is supporting this program. Now, as I said, I will also want to introduce two people who supported this program, this training course, for you to enjoy it. In other words, for you to follow it. And the two people, the first person I'll introduce, because he is the senior in the context of age and expertise. Yeah, the first person is Joseph Adegun Olusegun. Yeah. When you remember Olusegun Obasanjo, his name is Olusegun Joseph Adegun. In fact, he is our tech expertise who has designed the KambelGroup.com website. He has also designed an app for us now, which we are going to launch in October. That is for marketing. And Joseph, as I simply call him, Joseph is a tech man. So all his courses are in computer, MA in computer, that is MTech in computer, and also BTech in computer. And this brother has been a support since I came to Nigeria with my adventurous mind, making sure that every other thing that I want to do, I'll be able to do it. In fact, another brother introduced him to me. However, I'll introduce that brother later. Now, so he is from Oyo State, and we call where he comes from is Ogbomosho. In fact, when you hear of Ogbomosho, it's more or less a Ghana town. Now, the second person I want to introduce is Isaac Kofi Ameleke. Isaac Kofi Ameleke. He is a Ghanaian, and in fact, he is currently in the Ashanti region. Isaac Kofi Ameleke is trained from Winneba. He holds first degree and in geography education and economics. In fact, this guy has been a wonderful support, and he's a good brother, and he is currently my assistant in Ghana. So those are the introductions I want to do. Before I continue and do the review of our training for the past 2 days and we zoom into today's training, I want to say that Kambel International Group is registered in Ghana and in Nigeria. As a company, it was registered in 2012 as a limited liability. That time we used COMBAL, and we are trying to change it. So when you see some of our information, like our merchant account, you see COMBL, Kambel International Limited. And in Nigeria, we are also registered as Kambel. Now, let us go to our training program. I think the introduction is enough. So coming to our course that we started on the 24th, continued yesterday 25th, and today 26th of August 2021, we are bringing this lesson or course to a close. And we want to say that it was a very wonderful time we have because the recommendations are positive and we appreciate every one of you for your commendations. Now, we also put on our platform our books. We'll talk about those ones later, but we are now focusing on our discussion. Now, so the discussion starts now. From 24th, we started and we look at the topic we are looking at is school classroom management. And the topic is effective classroom management. And we said this training is focused on teachers, particularly in the classroom. And our outline that we have given for our discussion is, one, we look at the concept of classroom management. We continue and we look at why classroom management is important. And you can all agree now that it is very, very important. Classroom management is important. We'll move forward and look at the other side. We also look at some challenges or problems in the teaching and learning process. Challenges that we face in the teaching and learning process, we look at it. Then yesterday, we look at that one yesterday, and we also look at roles of engagement. So I already identified many of the challenges that we face in the classroom. I spoke about learning difficulties of the pupils and students. I also talked about pupils and students' family problems make some of them become bullies or become destructive in the teaching and learning process. We went on and looked at lack of effective communication of personal needs of these pupils and students, because some of them, especially in the nursery, we identify that some of them find it difficult to communicate. Another thing is language barrier. We discussed that as a problem. Then we look at lack of defined rules and regulations or discipline at home. And we say some homes, the problem that we find in our classroom is because in the house there is laissez-faire leadership. There's a laissez-faire attitude. I don't care, and parents don't care. Some parents are so much engaged in their work, and they leave all their responsibilities in the hand of their caretakers or caregivers. That becomes a problem. So some of them don't respect them, and we said that that becomes a problem in some classes. We also talk about inadequate time to achieve teaching and learning objectives, and we also emphasize since 2020 that challenge has been there. Those in Ghana can admit, those in Nigeria too can admit, there were times that we have to close down school after we calm down. Now, even currently, many of the schools in Africa, they are not having the adequate time. Because of that, teachers are not able to achieve their goal sets in the classroom. Some periods are cut down. Instead of 5 periods in a week, it tends to be 3 times. Some tend to be 2 times, 2 periods. That is a problem. Then we also look at limited support by some school managers. And that one I spoke extensively about the problem in the public schools where governments now, everything is politicized to the extent that education is also politicized. Government said we are going to provide everything. However, they are not providing. The teacher is in the class. The teaching and learning materials that you need in order to conduct your class, you cannot get it. Sometimes some people have to use one marker in a whole term. I spoke about that as a problem. Then I also talk about inadequate support by parents to the school and the classroom. That is also a problem. So those are some of the review of the challenges in the classroom that teachers face in the teaching and learning process. Now I went on to look at, yes, I'm looking at my time. I went on to look at establishing rules of engagement in a class. And I already said, I know some people will be saying rules of engagement in a class. The only thing I'm trying to say is that you can set rules in the classroom. Set rules for pupils and students, set rules for yourself, and out of that, I emphasize on one of the areas, which is what? The teacher being moderate, both in your dressing and your communication. Communicating in a way that your pupils and students can understand you. It is part of what I am looking at as what? Establishing rules of engagement. I talk about the military part, and I also talk about how we can look at some of my observations. I made them known, and they are all part of the materials that we have, which will be available to those who are willing to have it. In that case, I have to say finally, before I continue, that in peacetime, there are rules of engagement. In wartime, there are good rules of engagement. And that whether you are having problem with a particular child or not, you must apply rules of engagement and make sure that you don't vent your anger on the child instead of directing that anger to those who are responsible. Some teachers will do that. That's the honest truth. We vent anger on pupils and students instead of directing that anger to those who cause it. For example, school management, things that you need, you can't, then you are annoyed and you vent that anger on the child, or parents come to do something, you vent that anger on the child. That is not good enough. So rules of engagement, my emphasis is that, and in my conclusion of that, I said that everything I'm talking about as rule of engagement is a principle. And that principle is in the context of effective classroom management. Therefore, rules of engagement is one of the concepts I'm trying to look at a different dimension as my contribution to education and development in the classroom. And what I want to let every intellectual know is that we cannot continue to be reading from other sources without adducing our minds to whatever we are teaching and learning, teaching pupils and students. They should read from a concept that you have adopted. They should be able to say that, oh, this is my teacher, he wrote and he talked about this thing, he explained it. So there are so many concepts I'm trying to evaluate and question, coming back from the context of our African continent. My dear African teachers, let's take note. Some of the concepts that we are adopting in Africa, they are good. But some of them, the truth is that they are not helping our students. They are not helping our school system. That is why we need to interrogate more of the issues and be able to come with results to solve many of the problems that we face on the African continent in our school system. Now, my review today has taken much time, but it's very important. Now, let's move on and look at today's topic. There are two topics we are looking at today. We are not going to spend too much time on them. Most of the materials you can have access to them and read more, but I'm going to highlight the points. Now, so the first point, which is our fifth subtopic that we are treating, we are starting today, is strategies for effective classroom management. Strategies for effective classroom management techniques. I add techniques to it. Now, my introduction, abstract. Students' behaviors like shouting, not paying attention, avoiding classwork, disrespect, and engaging in power struggle with teachers or bully may take your focus away from the teaching and learning objectives. If you are not focused, if you don't focus on the objectives of the days, thus it can focus you away from the teaching and learning time in the classroom. However, adopting the right strategies and techniques in the to manage your classroom setting may pay a lot and minimize distraction in your class. So that is my introduction for strategies for effective classroom management. What I'm just trying to emphasize is that yes, the challenges are there. Yes, the problems are there. However, if you adopt "I can do it, I'll succeed with it" attitude, you'll be able to pull through whatever challenge you face in the classroom. Therefore, let us look at some of the strategies we have to adopt. So I said that the first strategy already is rules of engagement. If you have the right rules of engagement for your class and for yourself, you can have the right teaching and learning environment. The atmosphere will be good for you. The pupils and students will guide each other, and you have a successful class almost all the time. So that is the first one. Our second one is that you as a teacher must try as much as possible to understand your pupils and students. Understanding your pupils and students in this context is that you must try to know the students that you are handling, the problems, the personal problems that they have. It might not be the one that we are talking about. It might not be their learning difficulty, but it can be emotional and it can be some other challenges that they have from their house. You have to assess that also. And if you are able to build the right rapport with the children, identifying them, get them close to yourself for a positive reason, you will be able to identify their problems, solve them, or observe them along the teaching and learning process and be able to take care of their needs if you are able to understand these pupils and students. You were once a pupil, you were once a student. Some people help you out. Some people did not help you to, which more or less affect who you are today, possibly. However, as you are listening to me today, take note that whatever people do to you in the past which did not help you, that you become the better person you want to be, today we should try as much as possible to help the children to overcome their learning difficulties, their needs. In that case, you have a smooth running in the classroom. So the first point is that understand your pupils and students. Sometimes to understand them, you have to go even to their homes to know whatever is happening at home. You have to know even sometimes the environment that they stay. Some of them, the environment affects their learning in classroom. You have to go there. Sometimes too, like I stated yesterday, you need to identify whether the child's problem is hereditary problem or is an environmental problem. Teachers are supposed to know that and take care of the needs of the pupils and students in the teaching and learning process. So that is my second one, which is the first one for today. The next one is that set appreciable limits. As a teacher, set appreciable limits and standards in the classroom. Standards that you will follow or the pupils will follow. When I'm talking about standard, I'm talking about review and post your classroom expectations so that they are clearly possible or visible. Approachable limits. Now, in our classroom, let me take it from the context of the classroom. Sometimes, yes, especially in the nursery primary sections, there are postcards that we display in the class. They must be at places that if you need them, you can apply them, you can take them and you use, or you can take the children to focus on it. However, if you put some learning materials at the front whilst you are teaching and you are not referring to them, the attention of the children will be drawn to those teaching and learning materials and they will not pay attention to you. So in the front as a teacher or whatever position you are, if it is in a discussion group, make sure that you set appreciable limits that the children cannot move beyond, or their focus will not go to other parts of the classroom whilst you are teaching and learning is going on. So be ready and make sure that if you set the limits, you should be able to encourage the pupils to follow. For example, if you are in the class and you are going to speak to the children, speak to them in a way that you will not demoralize the pupils and students. Sometimes pressure is on you as the teacher. And sometimes if you are not careful, your temperament may rise up and the pupils and students may even, in quote, annoy you. However, if you set up appreciable limit to whatever you do, you can control your anger, you can control whatever situation is happening. In controlling, and in this context, I want you to take note. In controlling or managing a class, it is not only the pupils, it is not only materials, you must be able to manage yourself and also be able to manage the pupils and students. So that is our third or second point we have to take note. Appreciable limit that the pupils and students can follow and you must also follow. If they are going to ask questions, when they ask questions, don't use derogatory words on the pupils. Like I gave the example of a mathematics teacher who when you ask a question, instead of answering the question or getting other students in the class to help you to answer the question, he will insult you. Insulting pupils and students demoralize the pupils. Therefore, when I'm talking about appreciable limits, try to be able to conduct the situation so that everybody, you'll be fair to everybody and also to yourself. Continuing, our next point for effective classroom management techniques is that keep to the schedule of your set. Keep to the schedule of your set or of your time. Now, when we are talking about schedule, it is about time allocated to you for your teaching. Like I said the other time when I was doing the discussion concerning the rules of engagement, there are rules I set for myself that by this time I have to be in class. You have to be in class. If I am late, it's only 5 minutes. By that time, I set that rule for myself. The rule for the pupils is that before I enter class, you have to be there. Within 5 minutes, if I'm there and you come late, there should be what? A punishment. The limit you set is, the schedule that you put in place, the pupils will follow. If you yourself, you go by 8, why won't the pupils go by it? Like I said earlier also, when you set the schedule and pupils know that this is what we are going to do in the process, they will all want they will be ready for it. And if the teacher is ready, the pupils will be ready. Another thing is, if the children are not even ready because they know the schedule, some of them, if you yourself as a teacher conduct yourself well, some other pupils will be telling the others, teacher doesn't like this, our auntie, our uncle doesn't like this, or Mr. So and so, or auntie so and so don't like this. So schedules is very important. Also in the class, it is very, in this, if you do your schedules well, what will happen is that it will help your student respect schedules and work with allotted time frame. They'll work with it. Therefore, when you set the schedule, you, the teacher, follow it, and the pupils will also follow it. That those that are not following will know that they are going against the rules of engagement in the class. Continuing, we want to look at another point. And this point today, I have about 11 points on my card. However, I'm going to review or discuss 6 of them, and the others I'll mention them. And when you have access to the material, you can learn them, you can read through them and help yourself with it. And some of them I'll be talking to it, because this is an interaction. It becomes a network in which we are going to help each other to be able to enhance teaching and learning, give confidence to ourselves as teachers, as educational professionals, and I hope it will help. So the next point is that practice patience and be rational with your decisions. Be rational with your decision. You see that this point is relating to the previous one that I raised. The previous one of about keep the schedule for of your sets, whatever you set to do. And this one is saying that practice patience and be rational with your decision. When we talk about rationalism, is a concept. And to be rational is to judge every situation in a way that punishment and the offense commensurate, or in other words, they are hand in hand. The punishment is not above whatever you want to above whatever the child does. And in that context also, in rationality, it is that when you find out that something is done in your class, in the teaching and learning process, don't combine all the pupils and say, if I don't get the one who has done it, I'm going to punish all of you. Suddenly you start slapping or punishing every one of them. You will not be just to the pupils and students. If you take your time, give the children time that, okay, this thing that happened is against our rules of engagement in the class. And that by the end of the lesson, I want to find out who has done it. If I don't get the person, then I'm going to do this. You are going to apply knowledge, wisdom, and psychology on the pupils. I can assure you that by the time the class ends, you'll be able to find the culprit without punishing every other person. If you do it like that, you are not rational enough, because you know that in your class, there are good students, there are moderate students, there are bad ones too. You can identify the bad ones. If you look at the first point that I raised in our discussion today concerning strategies for effective classroom management, what I emphasize is that you have to understand your pupils and students. In understanding them, you have to be able to identify their negative traits. If you're able to identify that, I can assure you that you'll be able to manage your class effectively without being irrational in your decisions. And to be rational also, if you apply patience You are patient that whatever the problem is, I will get over it. Whatever the problem is, I will help my pupils and students overcome it. With that, you are patient. And being patient, you will be able to pull through every challenge in your class. I want to say that what I am saying doesn't mean that I did not fault in some of my decisions in class before. After sometimes I can remember that there were some pupils who did certain things in my class, and because of anger, I have to apply strong hand, which later on when I discover to be rational, if you the teacher, so I'm trying to drive at the point. If you as a teacher, you realize that you did something to a child which is wrong, you should be able to master courage, call the child, talk to the child, and be able to tell the child that I am sorry for what happened. I shouldn't have done that to you. It will not happen again. Talking to the child like that, the child will never hold it against you. The child will even be wondering that, hey, my teacher apologized to me. Such a child, you can get the attention of the child all the time if nothing else happened to the child again, because the child realizes that you as a teacher, you are rational. And some of them like this, if they are having problem in their house and they come to school, they have problem with you and you're able to solve it, the child will get closer to you and be able to tell you whatever happened to him or her in the house than even disclosing certain things to their parents. And in that context, what I want us to understand is that sometimes too, we the teachers are not able to draw the pupils and students in the class to guide them. That is why their peers become their guide, and the information they receive from the pupils and students, their colleagues or their peers, may not be able to help them. But if you, the teacher, you are patient, you're able to accommodate the pupils and students, you will be able to carry them through even their learning difficulties in the teaching and learning process. So being rational and being patient is all about knowing that you are human. You can make a mistake. The pupils also are human. They can make mistake. You are older than them. You should be able to balance and make sure that you will not have too much problem with the child because you hurt the child, and that you because of ego, you are not able to come to the child's level to be able to have discussion with him. So I think him or her. So I think this is very important. In the teaching and learning process is all about focusing on the objectives. Ego should not go above the objective that you set for the class. If ego is above it, you will not be able to achieve your teaching and learning objectives for the time, the period, or the time allotted to you, and it will become difficult for you to manage your class. So the positive aspect is what we are trying to deal with. So we have to take note of that. Patient, patient, patient. Be rational, be rational, be rational in the teaching and learning process. I gave you my own example. I have to apologize to a child before. After that, the child became my friend. And that child never always remember me. And I'll tell you some of the stories along when we are discussing. So the next point I want to take note is that be conscious of the causes of misbehavior. Be conscious of the problems of misbehavior in your class. Now, in the first point, we said you should be able to identify the pupils and students. After you are able to identify their problems or their challenges, your consciousness guides you. It becomes like what? A strategy, a technique that as you are teaching, you know that no, this child, I should be able to handle this child like this or the other way. and you'll be able to help the pupils and students. So in this context, consciousness of the child's problem or difficulty will help you. Another thing in that context is that if you find a child having problem and you help the child through, focus on the child going to the next level, becoming a better person. Focus on that. And like I said yesterday, after you punish a child for a wrongdoing, don't remind the child of that wrongdoing again. So being conscious of the child's behavior will help you. And you know that some of them, they are so recalcitrant, and you have to ignore them sometimes in the teaching and learning process. When they are doing everything, sometimes I could remember sometimes when some pupils and students, especially I can give an example of this secondary school when I was teaching in the secondary school. When some of them are misbehaving whilst I'm writing on the board, when I see them, the only thing I turn around, then I will just fold my arm and be looking at them. And some of them become ashamed to sit down, and I will not even ask them a question. But sometimes if I see that it becomes too much, I apply other rules of engagement in order to get them in line for teaching and learning to continue. So be conscious about their difficulties, whatever their behavioral problems or limitations are, you should be able to identify. If you do that, what will be happening is that you should try to know if your pupils and students take their breakfast. That's another context. You see, in that consciousness about the pupils' behavior, their challenges is that sometimes there will be a child in your class. That child is so free, jovial, and active. Suddenly, you will realize that the child becomes dull, sometimes, especially in the morning. That child is active, but in a day or sometime, you begin to realize that when the child comes to school early morning, the child is dull, will not pay attention. Sometimes you put his or her head on the table. Something might be happening. It is possible that that child did not eat in the morning. So in the morning when you come, yes, oh, auntie or uncle has eaten. Yes, what have you eaten? Can you tell me, especially the nursery? They will be able to tell you. The primary, the lower primary, they will be able to tell you. The upper ones, there are different ways that you can handle it. What I am trying to say is that if you're able to draw the pupils to yourself, you are conscious about their problems, their challenges, what will happen is that you will know how to become distractive to your class every time you are in class, and you'll be able to manage that difficulty and take the pupils and students along. Now, the next point is that engage the learners in enough activities. Engage the learners in enough activities. In this case, I want to say that we in the 21st century, that the focus on the teacher, as I said in the first program, is no longer the teacher at the center of teaching and learning. It is the pupils and students at the center of teaching and learning. Let me explain. If you as a teacher, you go to class and you are thinking that you know everything and you have to pour on the children, you are mistaken in this 21st century. There are things that you, the teacher, honestly don't know. People know. Therefore, in your teaching and learning, in the teaching and learning process, when you prepare your scheme, you prepare your plan, make sure that you have activities that will engage the mind of the pupils and students to contribute more through questioning, through activity, through sites, that is learning materials that will draw their attention. Sometimes you can go into the class with a video, a short video for them to watch. You are drawing their attention before they continue. Somebody will say, how am I going to do that? Oh, on my phone or what? In fact, if you are ready to do something, even if it is not provided for you, you must know that I need this, I need that to be effective. And those are the things that draw me or inspired me. I move. Everything I want to do is not always correct, but I try. I'm adventurous to know more. Because of that, I try to get materials for myself. I buy computer for myself. Whatever I'm doing now, I'm doing it on my own laptop. I bought some of the first time. I can tell you about that, but let's continue focus on this. So do things, put things in place that will help engage the mind of the pupil. If you engage the mind of the pupils and students, and it is very interesting, I can assure you that you will get their attention through the learning process. So these are some of the strategies I want to discuss. The last one I want to discuss before we continue with the next lesson is the fact that you need to encourage initiative amongst learners. Initiative. You, the teacher, you prepare to carry your pupils along. Try to get initiative from the pupils and students. Some people ask, how am I going to do this? An example. Anytime, let me give the example from the secondary school level. Anytime you are able to carry the pupils along in the teaching and learning process, and you realize that the pupils are innovative, what you need to do is this. Try to organize projects, and with the project you can separate them into their strengths and weaknesses to discuss. Another one is that when you realize that the pupils are innovative, they want to do more than you think they can do, what you do is that you can give them topics ahead of the class to be able to do presentations in the class. In this case, I want to say another thing. When we were trained, we came out of school, the zeal was there. And you think that the teacher must do everything. And some of us stress ourselves so much. But this is it. If you're able to organize yourself well, you allow the pupils to be initiative or innovative, what will be happening is that you will lessen your stress in the classroom. There are things that you can direct and you ask the pupils to do it, and you, the teacher, you are just contributing. And in this context too, you can also adopt what we call peer teaching. In peer teaching, for example, you can apply it like this. You are teaching something the pupils are finding difficult to understand, but you are able to get one or two pupils who understand. What you do is that get those pupils in to come. Yeah, for example, you call a child or a student. Do you understand this? Can you explain it to the one besides you? Yes, he said he doesn't understand. Yes, explain it to him. He or she will explain it. After explaining, then the contributions that you need to make as a teacher, you add to it. This will help you and it will minimize your stress. Somebody asked me the other time, teaching and learning is so difficult too. How are you able to do it? And I was telling the person this particular thing, that if you know how to carry the pupils and students along, and you are able to identify their capabilities, and you enhance their capabilities, or you recognize it and give them the opportunity in your classroom to be peer teachers sometimes, you, the teacher, will minimize the stress. You will not come back to the house and be so much stressed because you engage the pupils and students, and you are just going around to guide them into the objectives. But take note, anytime you open for initiative in your class, make sure that your mind is on the objectives of the class at that moment, so that you will not lose track of the objective set for the teaching and learning at that particular time. With this, I want to go through the other strategies that you can adopt to effectively manage your class. And there must be use of effective verbal and non-verbal communication. Verbal is speech, non-verbal is what? Your gestures, and as I'm talking to you now, I'm doing some gestures. As you see, the gestures follow. You must be able to manage them that you will not misdirect your gestures. So verbal and non-verbal communication. And this one, I can tell you, especially when you are in the secondary school, you, the teacher, should make sure that you have command over the language you are speaking and that you will not make too much mistake. I'm saying too much mistake. Honestly, all of us sometimes make mistakes. However, try as much as possible to overcome the pronunciations and all those things, and you will not have difficulty, and the pupils will be laughing at the teacher, and the teacher don't know what is happening, but they are laughing at how you are using grammatical aspects and what have you. So make sure that you adopt the right verbal and non-verbal communication in your teaching and learning process, and it will help you achieve your goal. I think I've even explained this one more. Yeah. So next one is that give tangible rewards. We talked about rules of engagement already, and I already said that in rule of engagement, make sure that when you give reward, it should be even. It should not be discriminatory. Take note of that. The next point is that make positive phone calls sometimes. Make positive phone calls sometimes, or now technology, WhatsApp message to a parent that, hey, your child is doing very well. The problems that we realize about your child, in fact, he is improving. Is it academic? Oh, so and so is doing well. You are encouraging the parents, you are encouraging the teacher, the child also, that in fact the teacher or my teacher is not only talking about my problems, but my successes too are shared with my parents. That become an encouragement, and it is positive, and it will help the child move on. Those are some of the things that were adopted by some of my teachers, and they pull me through my difficulties. Take note of that. Now, so the last one I want to say before as a point is that, take note, build excitement for content and lesson plan. All of us, this one I shouldn't explain it further. All of us must understand that scheme of work is very important, and it depends on the jurisdiction you are and how you are supposed to do it. Follow it. The main reason is that you are preparing for your class. As you prepare very well for your class, you will minimize the challenges that you face. So the strategies that you are going to adopt as you are preparing for the class, you are asking yourself, what am I going to do in order to bring the children along? What material am I going to use? Sometimes in the public school, the challenge again is what? Teaching and learning material. But as we have started this, we are going to next level, and we think that we can have positive influence or effect on education in our countries. So these are some of the strategies for effective classroom management. There are many other points. In fact, in my research and experience, by the time I prepared this, there are over 25 points I can mention, in which are points that we can raise for effective classroom management or as a technique. But take note, in everything you are doing, let me emphasize, make sure that your focus is on the objectives of the class. And if you are able to achieve the objectives, you are able to raise the pupils and they are doing well, you are a successful teacher, and many people will recognize you. Now, so that is what we will have to look at as strategies. The strategies are numerous, but I want you to know that anytime you can be a teacher who loves your pupils and embrace them, most of the time, make sure you put yourself in the shoes of the pupils. Sometimes putting yourself in the shoes of the pupils, one thing that remind me, I think teaching is my passion, education is my passion, imparting people's life is my passion now. That is why I'm doing all these things. What I've realized is that sometimes I go back into memory lane and I ask myself, what are some of the things that were done to me, which affected me, which delayed some of my strength? And I remind myself that if people do this to me and they affected me, I shouldn't do it to my pupils and students. That is what helped me to get along with my pupils and students. There are stories I can tell you about my pupils and students later, but anytime we have this engagement, I will talk about that. Now, because with time, I want to go on. Today,